Today on the LowDOWN, a dancing room podcast, Christina Light gives us the lowdown on medical advocacy for dancing room families. Over to you, Hina and Mala.
Thanks, Jody. Today, we have a topic that's relevant for everyone, we suspect. If you have a person with Down syndrome in your life, you may have at some point been surprised to note that the medical team for your person is huge. The number of specialists and appointments can challenge even the most ultra-organized person, which we all know is Hina. Families regularly tell us that the medical part of Down syndrome is a lot to manage, not only because of the sheer number of appointments, but also because each appointment requires some degree of advocacy for their person and clear communication with the medical professional. So today we thought it would be helpful to speak with someone who has experience in both roles. So today we're talking with Christina Light. She's a pediatric intensive care nurse, also called PICU, at BC Children's Hospital and has worked there for over 15 years. She has two amazing little boys. Nate, the oldest, is 5.5 and he has Down syndrome and is the most incredible little guy. I can vouch for that. He's awesome. And he has a little brother, Nicholas, or Naughty Nicky, who will be 3 in April. And Christina also has 4 wonderful stepchildren. Welcome to the LowDOWN, Christina. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it is really wonderful to have you. I'm excited to discuss this topic. But before we start, in the grand tradition of the LowDOWN, we would love to start our interview with you with 5 secret questions. Are you game?
Oh, dear.
I know. No math involved. Promise. No skill testing. Just so that our listeners can get to know you as a person a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay. Question number 1. Your kids have amazing hair. What is your styling secret?
Well, it's also genetics.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
If you've met his dad, he's got spiky hair, so the kids have spiky hair for him. And we use a really, really good gel quality product from the hairstylist.
Perfect. Oh, it's a hairstylist gel, not even Shoppers Drug Mart gel.
No, it's not Shoppers Drug Mart. It's actually the expensive hairstylist gel.
You can tell because it like we see them in the afternoon and they are still rocking it. So it's good stuff. It's so cute.
Okay. Question number 2. What is your de-stress routine at the end of like a tough rotation at the hospital?
Oh, I come home and I hug my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If it's been a tough day in our unit, I come home and I just hug them, and they always run to me when I come home, which is amazing. Yeah. And it's just cuddle them on the couch, cuddle them in bed. It's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, give them a big old smell and just a big squish and you're good to go.
Yeah, and lots of kisses.
Yeah.
Which right now they still let me do. So I
know, that's true.
Soak it up.
Yeah, soak it up while you can. Okay, question number 3. What is your favorite place to go for like a weekend away in BC?
Oh, I love Tofino. I've only ever been there once. Mm-hmm. It's just a longer drive to get there. Whistler is also a family favorite to go up there because it's nice and close as well. And just lots of exploration and doing some of the trails and stuff like that.
Yeah. Kid friendly.
Very kid friendly. Nice and easy to walk around. You don't need your car as much too. So I'd probably say those are the kind of 2 places and stuff. The beach is always a good place.
Yeah.
Right. Centennial and Tawasin is an amazing beach as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just
it's great because we're recording this in March where it's 5 degrees outside right now. So all of that sounds so great to look forward to in the next few months. Yeah.
Spring is coming. Coming.
It's coming. Okay. Question number 4. What is the best brunch food?
Oh, the best brunch food? Probably Eggs Benedict.
Yeah.
With some really good, smashed potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And lots of hollandaise sauce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That one actually had a correct answer and you got it right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
You guys are both nodding, so that's a good sign.
Yes, we agree.
Highly agree. Yes.
Okay. And the last question, what's your favorite family routine?
Oh, family routine. I don't know. Do we even have a family routine at this point in our lives? It's probably just like the end of the day when we're just like lying on the couch.
Yeah.
Not watching what I want to watch, but watching kids shows.
Some chill time.
And you know what? And just like, especially Nicholas comes and cuddles up beside me, and then Nate cuddles up beside Mark, and just, it's just, or I get both of them sometimes, one on each side, especially if I've been working. And so it's just that time. It's just like that little bit of cuddle time.
Yeah. Like all the routine is done for the day, and it's just time to just do some love and relaxation.
Just some chill and relax before bedtime.
That sounds great. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. That wasn't too hard.
No,
you got the one question you needed to get right. So we're good to go.
You got it.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into our topic today. But first, can you tell us a little bit about your work and how you were involved in that area of medicine?
So I have been a pediatric nurse since 2005, and I've worked in the pediatric ICU since 2008. And I think I've always been interested in peds and working in the hospital because when I was 15, my sister was in a serious car accident where she was in a coma, and she is hemiplegic, which means she's paralyzed on one side of her body. And I saw her go through that process of healing and recovery and at 15, it's a really inspirational and influential period of time. And I'd always talked about being a nurse after that. And then when my dad died when I was 23, I decided that life was too short and I needed to do something with my life and not just be in some dead-end jobs. And I then put my application into nursing school and put myself through nursing. And then I've always worked in peds since then. It's just an amazing place to be, right? It's just, you see so much growth and change, and recovery is amazing with kids.
The resiliency for kids, right?
Yeah.
And I think for many people, if they imagine a PICU, you always think, or you mostly think that it's like and it is a highly stressful place. It's often a sad place, an anxious place, but it can also be, like you said, a happy place where you see progress and you see kids getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's, it's not always the easiest place to be. But even in a sad situation, when you can make the best of it and be a part of that family's journey, it's a really rewarding place. And it's an honor to be a part of a family's journey, whether it's a positive or negative situation. And most kids do get better. And that's the most amazing thing is you see kids come from being so sick to going home again. And it's just the most amazing journey. Little kids, big kids, most of them don't feel sorry for themselves like we are as adults. And so you just want to help them. All they want to do is be normal kids. They want to play. They want to be held. They want to be hugged. They don't know how to feel sorry. They just want to get better.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to be a part of that and meet some really amazing families as well along that journey.
Yeah. And you're such an important part of that part of their lives too, right? So I'm sure so many of them remember you. Do you have like patients come back when they're older?
Yes. Yes, sometimes they do come back. And sometimes you kind of have to get your memory jogged a little bit because obviously we work with so many different families.
Right. And you see them at their sickest moment.
Yeah. But it's also really amazing. I always tell them, I'm like, please come back to visit us. Like, you might have to remind me a little bit, especially when it's like a tiny baby that's come in and now they're bigger. But it's also so amazing to see them come back and come back looking amazing. And they won't remember their journey there either, but that's okay. It's like the parents do. And the parents do say like they remember almost all of it.
Oh yeah. And I've had personally a long contact with NICU. So the neonate side of things. And they said just such cute things when we left. And they said, we always love to see our alumni.
Yes.
So if you could come back. And I do remember them. I remember all their names. There were 15 nurses or more on rotation when we were there. Great. And we bring the alumni back.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much like the families do remember the names. Some of them write them down in books. Some of them just remember them. And we've had it where they've written a card and they've written every single person's names that's had contact with their child. And you're like, wow, I had no idea that you actually did remember all this, especially with everything going on. And it just shows how impactful everybody of the team really can
Absolutely.
be. Absolutely.
So, such a crucial part. So when a child has Down syndrome, the medical team can be huge. And I'm sure as a parent of a little dude with Down syndrome, you can attest to this. There are often several specialists, family doctor, and a pediatrician, not to mention therapists and a school team. So you have a big team to manage. But coordinating among that many people is a huge job. And, effective communication with the medical team is crucial. So you understand this, as I said, being a parent, but your perspective is a bit different because you regularly speak with doctors and other specialists in the hospital setting yourself. So what tips and tricks can you recommend to make that communication more effective?
I always tell parents to write stuff down. Don't rely on your memory to remember everything because you end up getting a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of information all at once, and that you're not going to absorb it all. So if you have questions, write it down, have a binder, have it broken down into categories for different specialists, different therapies. Ask the questions, write the questions down. If you're not sure, don't worry about asking the same question 3, 4, 5 times until you actually understand, because you really need to fully understand everything that's being told to you. And it's okay to ask questions. Just keep asking questions until you really solidly get the info that you need to know. Sometimes the medical teams won't always, they'll go simplistic on their answers. And for some people that's okay. And for some people it's not okay. And some people want more information. And if you're that kind of person that wants more information, then ask the questions, ask more deeper things that you can think of. But also be careful about Googling. Don't go to Dr. Google. We're all guilty of Dr. Google. I know I've done it as well. But you got to be cautious on the information you're pulling from, because everybody's different. There's no 2 exact human beings out there. Even if you're identical twins, you're still not 100%. And you have to just take your knowledge from things that way. And build your team, build the people that you trust. And, you know, find the people that you do trust. And if you're not happy with an answer, then go above them or ask to speak to somebody different.
And that's okay to do. You have the right as a person in the medical system to ask for those things. And not everybody knows that. But you can ask for a second opinion. That
absolutely.
is okay.
And just another person to talk to about the situation. And does this make sense? And it doesn't have to be within our hospital system. You can ask for second opinions in other provinces that, you know, if it's a heart surgery situation, like you can always go to other places to get that opinion, just to make sure that what we're doing or what they're suggesting is okay.
And for people with Down syndrome, sometimes that's a requirement because there are so few centers that do specialize or have, you know, high caseload. We've talked a lot to medical people from the States where they have that sort of Down syndrome medical center concept sort of fairly well developed. But if you're not near one of those, then your local is probably going to need to communicate with somebody out of state or at the next closest center. Do you ever recommend bringing the binder in, so your records binder and your specialist binder, and then using that as a tool to get your new team, let's say you're admitted into PICU or onto a ward, to get them up to date? And passing over the binder and being like, this is where we are at, and these are the people on the team.
Yeah, I think you could do that. It really kind of depends on what the reason is that you're being admitted, and whether some of those factors do play into
overlap.
it. So it's more your medical stuff, and like depending on whether you have like the ear, nose, and throat doctors, the cardiologists, any gastroenterologists, that kind of stuff, absolutely, because a lot of that can play together, and some of these subspecialties are very minor focused in that's the only area that they look into and stuff. And you have to be like, okay, we need to broaden our thought process, and we need to broaden our scope. This is all the little things that are going on. There is always an interconnection. And that's where the pediatricians are also really good in kind of delving into bigger pictures and trying to find some of these other, you know, people that we need to maybe find referrals for or bigger supports for and stuff. The binders are great. I don't know that the doctors would take the time to go through it, but it's also something good for yourself to be like, okay, so this is what happened, you know, a year ago, or this is kind of the situation, because sometimes we also need reminders of the things that have happened, because we're not going to remember everything in every situation as well.
And I think it's also important for our families listening to know that, you know, I mean, talking to medical professionals can be very intimidating. Right? Especially if there's a language barrier, if there's, you know, you may not be like Marla and I, who are medical nerds that really want to learn or understand some of this stuff. for them to know that there might be resources available in the hospital that can help bridge that gap. So there could be translating services, there can be social workers.
Yes, absolutely.
So they can access some of those services they may not even know to ask for.
Yes, absolutely. And that's 100%. A lot of times that happens for sure. Like we have, like now with technology, we actually have a visual iPad for translation services. So even though you may speak English well, you want to hear things in your own language to understand it a bit better. And that is totally 100% okay.
Yeah.
And that translating service is 24/7 accessible. So we can always do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Your nurses are also your best friends.
Mhm.
You know, we're also here as your advocates. So if you talk to us and just say, hey, like I have some questions, then we can also be those people to kind of go to the medical team and say, hey, the family has some questions, you know, or they're concerned about this or this. These are some missing things that they didn't tell you. We're part of your team, right? And we're a really big part of that team as well. But you guys are also a huge part of the team. The family is 100% a team member. You need to be part of rounds. You need to be part of everything and hear what's kind of going on and participate in it too.
Yeah.
Could families also ask the nursing staff who would be the best recipient for a question? Let's say they have questions and they're not sure if it should be, you know, the ENT doctor or the cardiologist or somebody else who should answer those questions. Are you guys able to say, that sounds like a good question for, you know, this person who's coming at 10 o'clock or whatever?
Absolutely.
And kind of supporting that way. Because I think sometimes people just don't know who they're supposed to ask, and they don't want to do it wrong because they don't want to feel like they're causing a problem or whatever, which is not the case. But you can always ask your nurses to help you figure out where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no harm in asking the question and then trying to help navigate that system and stuff. And even as somebody that works in the system, I know the frustrations of waiting for consults and waiting for people to come and trying to get those answers that you need. And you want those answers now. And sometimes you just can't get those answers now. And why can't tests be done right now? And it's a hard, it's hard. Even being somebody that works in the system, I still have to wait for the process too.
Yeah, exactly. So the current AAP guidelines, so the American Academy of Pediatrics puts out a set of guidelines for children and adolescents with Down syndrome, kind of guiding physicians in terms of what tests need to be done at what part of their life. So the guidelines recommend obviously a variety of specialist appointments to monitor and screen for many of those comorbid health problems that come along with the diagnosis of Down syndrome. So we have observed that some of our families have no trouble getting referrals. They'll go into their doctors and the doctors will say, yep, let's do this. And then others have a lot of challenges, especially with like sleep referrals or, you know, or sleep study referrals. What advice as a health professional can you provide for advocating for referrals?
Keep pushing. Keep pushing. If you're not getting your answers, keep pushing. Find your friends as well too. I am lucky that our pediatrician knows that I work in the system and is willing to do whatever I ask, even if I'm not really asking it and just asking for information. Where I know other people are like, well, I'm not really getting the answers that I want. I just keep pushing, keep asking. You know what, like it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease is really true. The more you ask, if you sit back and you kind of just wait, things don't get done. Like you've got to be that advocate. You've got to be that, sometimes you have to be that pushy parent. And I respect it when parents are like that, to be honest. I know it's not easy sometimes and you don't want to be the bad parent. And I'm in that situation right now with school and stuff too, where I just, I'm trying to pick my battles. And you do pick your battles in the medical system as well. But you just got to keep pushing. Sleep studies are one of the biggest things that are the problem in trying to get them done. They don't get done enough. They're not, there's not enough spots to do them. There's not enough people to do them and monitor them. And I know all of our kids should qualify for sleep studies and they don't always. And again, I'm lucky, like with Nate, that we were going to do a sleep study. And because I work in the system, I was able to do like an examinatory study at home versus a full sleep study in the hospital. And I still need to continue to do some more of that stuff and push for some more of that stuff as time goes on. But I recognize that I am very lucky in that I have the resources and I know the people to ask for that.
Yeah, and I think like guidelines like these are so essential because they're created by health professionals for health professionals. So I've had many conversations with families when a lot of them are familiar with the guidelines, a lot of them are not familiar. So I think a lot of our jobs at the DSRF as therapists is to help be part of that advocacy village for our families, being like, hey, take this to your doctor.
Yeah.
There's a couple of really great resources that we'll put on our episode page that parents can, type in an issue. It prints out things, it prints out letters you can take to your doctor. So there's lots there. But I think a lot of the families put the doctors and the health professionals in the place of the expertise, and yes, their expertise in their field, but you as a parent are an expert in your child. So 100%. Just kind of remembering that as well.
100%. You are your child's expert, and the health professionals need to be listening to you. If you have a concern, you need to say it. And if you're not getting the answers you want, then ask for more answers then, or ask them to explain it better so that you're not, nobody knows 100% everything. Yeah. Right. Medical professionals are human. We don't know everything. And sometimes we have to go out of our element and try to find the answers sometimes too. So, and you just have to also believe in your gut instinct. I'm very strong on that gut instinct aspect of things.
Yeah. I think I have a few notes on this topic. One of them is that if you are not advocating for your child, nobody else is, which is a scary thought. But it does come back to you. And that is kind of here in BC, regardless of your sort of home culture. And we have to acknowledge that a lot of people come from cultures where you don't ask questions twice.
Or you don't question authority.
You don't question it. And here, that's not how the system is set up. And so it takes some getting used to if you're not used to that sort of advocacy or that very verbal advocacy. But the way that the system runs here, if you are told that a referral is not important one time, that doesn't mean that you leave it. It means that the next appointment, you bring more paperwork with you. You bring the healthcare guidelines, you bring your doctor letter, those kinds of things, and you ask for it again. Yeah. And that people are not going to be mad at you for doing that. That is how the system here works. Yeah.
You are your child's biggest advocate, and they can't speak for themselves, or until they are able to speak for themselves and speak up, then you need to speak for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a tricky one. It's at this sort of crossroads between, what the culture that people grew up with and the way that the medical system runs. And, the medical system is full of really smart people, but medicine is also changing very, very fast. So depending on when you learned your information and how up to date you are on things like Down syndrome, you might have a very different set of ideas about what is required.
And some of our subspecialists don't have a lot lot with Down syndrome either, right?
Good point.
And so, you can go see the ENT docs, and some of them may have a lot of experience with working with kids with Down syndrome, and some of them may not have had any experience, and so just don't know what to expect or what to do. Same with pediatricians too. I mean, they're globally trained but it's all about exposure. And if you haven't been exposed to that knowledge, then you can't be expected to know everything, right?
And I think the onus should also be not only on the families for educating the health professionals. Like I think, and there is a bit of a push, and I think, for medical professionals to listen and maybe learn. Like, I mean, if, Marla and I, if we have a client with maybe, a challenge that neither of us have worked on before, we're like, okay, let's do the reading, let's do some pro-D on it, and then we'll learn how to help this person, right? So they kind of need to be open on their end to be like, okay, I don't know that much about Down syndrome, but let's look it up.
And I try to take that opportunity at work too. When I work with a whole lot of different people from different specialties. And like, just for an example, like this past week, there was an adult doctor that was working with us on a rotation. And I was on a phone call because Nate got hurt at school. And so I just explained afterwards, oh, my son has Down syndrome. And he started to say, oh, I'm sorry. And I looked at him and I said straight up, I said, never ever say I'm sorry again. I said, he is my greatest gift. And a diagnosis is not something to say I'm sorry about. And so I just took this opportunity to educate him in how to talk to a family.
How to do it better.
And how to do it better. And your face said it all, Hannah, there. because I was like, don't, I actually had my finger out. I'm like, don't ever do that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I don't want to hear I'm sorry, because I'm not sorry, because he is the most amazing.
Yeah.
And the first thing I say to a family, if they have a new baby and a new diagnosis, is congratulations on your baby. Because that is all you have right now as a baby. Sorry, I kind of went off tangent there.
No, but it hits home for everybody.
Yeah. I'm very strong-willed on that part in that I don't want to, I know like we could have a whole other conversation about genetics and working with the genetics teams and everything else. And that's a whole different topic we can have later.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sorry is not something we should say to our patients and our kids and our families. And, it's like, congratulations, you have a beautiful baby.
Yeah,
because that's all they are. They are just a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right.
Sorry, I went off tangent there.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm glad that you said that. Sometimes it happens, and this is one of those things that we just talked about, that a medical professional and a parent disagree about the correct course of action or whether a referral is needed at all. In this situation, sometimes we do want to seek a second opinion, and a lot of families have expressed discomfort to us around this process. They are like, well, aren't I supposed to just listen to this person? Don't all doctors know the same things? We've kind of talked about that. What's your take on second opinions?
Everybody has the right to a second opinion, even if you get the same answer, and that is okay. There is not just one doctor for that subspecialty in our hospital, for the most part, I would like to say. There's many cardiologists, there's many ENT doctors, there's many respirologists, there's 2 cardiac surgeons. You have the right to ask for a second opinion and to not worry about offending the person that you're asking that second opinion for. I think a lot of that fear comes from you're worried that you're going to offend that person and they're not going to want to do the care for your child at that point. The medical doctors know, like, this is your child. They know that you have a right to know a second opinion, and they can put all your information together. And now with like the electronic world, email it to another surgeon in a different province, a different state, and to get that second opinion for you. Unless it's a life and death situation that has to be decided right now, you can have those second opinions, right? We have to kind of take what the situation is. Like if your child is seriously ill and we need to make a decision now, then sometimes it's not the right time to ask for a second opinion. But if it's a decision between X, Y, and Z on the pathway of things, then absolutely you have a choice and a right to ask for that opinion if you're just not comfortable with what they're saying.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit here and talk about technicians because boy, oh boy, do we interact a lot with them, and it's very critical. I'm thinking about blood draws, I'm thinking about dental cleanings, I'm thinking about all these procedure-oriented things, a lot of electrodes, a lot of things for sleep studies that can feel uncomfortable or invasive for the child. And at the same time, there are things that we like really need them to go well, right? When you need a blood draw, you need a blood draw. And like we would
because you're going to be doing them a lot.
Exactly.
Right?
We would love it to go well. Families often have ideas about what could help this situation go well, or what would make their child feel more calm, or those kinds of things. How do they share this information with a technician? Is there a way to go about that?
So like if you're an inpatient in the hospital, you again can use your nurses. You can put signs on your doors and say, please speak to mom prior to, or dad, I should say, mom or dad, prior to, blood draws or interactions with your child. You can use your nurse as well. If you're in ICU, your nurses are advocates. We're always there. And just also communicating with the team and stuff. Like Nate doesn't do well with blood draws, but we're working on it. It's only once a year, so it's hard to kind of get that going and stuff. Same with the dentist and stuff like that. But it's just like, it's that exposure and just taking the time and just like even talking to your team and being like, you just got to give him time. You got to give him time to process this. And you have the right to also say stop. Like if somebody's, trying to do blood work and your kid is not tolerating it, just say stop. Can we take a break? Can you come back? Does it need to be done right this moment? You are your child's savior. You don't need to be also your child's, you don't have to hold your child down if you're in the hospital. That can be our job. You can be the rescuer. I always tell parents that. And I've also been on the other side of that as well, too, when Nate was in ICU and I had to step back and let my colleagues take care of him. And then I had to come in and be that rescuer.
And be mom.
Yeah.
And be mom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about that, but I do know what it's like to be on the other side. And I do share that with families as well. And I don't know if I answered your question or not there.
No, you totally did. I think those are really good strategies, is just, let your technicians know what would be helpful. And maybe it's about volume or pace or distraction or all of those kinds of things. I think the note on the parent should be the rescuer and not the holder of the child is a really good one. It allows that rapport and bond to remain untouched between parent and child, which is very important. Conversely, though, some families have already had bad experiences, let's say with blood draws, and they know that their child is likely to be highly upset if it is going to be happening again. Due to some medical trauma history. Do you have any ideas or suggestions if parents anticipate it's going to be bad and we still have to do it, but we know it's going to be terrible? Are there ways to get around that?
So we do have child life specialists at the hospital, which I'm not sure how many people are familiar with them. If it's a Monday to Friday, they can definitely be part of it, and they can prep the child and talk with them. They have a lot of prep stories. You can do social stories as well if you know something's coming up and you have enough time to prep your child for things, or just watching videos to kind of say, hey, this is what's going to, it kind of all depends on the age of the situation as well. And sometimes you just have to do it. And I know that that's not the answer either. But just trying to prep or prepare your child as best as you can, depending on where you're at on development. And, if it's a baby, you can't really prepare them for it, but if it's a toddler, you can watch videos and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a little poke. The child life is great about using child words versus adult words. Because if you go up to a kid and say, I'm going to draw your blood, or I'm going to poke you in your arm, probably not the best thing. It's going to scare them. And just giving them some pre-warning as well sometimes, just to give them that time to process. So it's like, we know our kids take time to process what they're saying, and they are visual learners. And so if you give them those visual cues, then they might understand it a little bit better as well, right? So, and you can kind of make it a game sometimes too, and you make it fun, even though, we're going to have to do this little poke. We can make it fun up until that point, do a little poke, and then we're all done kind of thing, right? So, and you find what works for your child. And if you know what works for your child, communicate that. Right? I need some videos, or I need to we need to blow bubbles first and then we can do it.
And that's the thing. I think if they can take the time to do all those things, to make it a game, to make it fun, then hopefully the future blood draws or future interactions won't necessarily need all of that, right? The kids will understand, okay, this is not as bad of an experience as I was thinking, and let me just get through it. So it doesn't have to be a big production all the time, but if we don't make the space and the time to set it up for them that way, because it is an intrusive process to get your blood drawn, or then of course, no one's that trust is broken. You're like, forget it. I'm not going to do this again. But so
and there are ways. Let's say you have your sleep study coming up, and it might be worth if you're a parent to take a look at a Google image of what that entails, because it's a lot of stickers, lots of things. But you can play stickers at home. And kids quite enjoy being the doctor, I find, and putting the stickers on you. And it gives them this feeling of control. I have my own kids give me blood draws all the time for pretend, because they have to do them. And it gives them, a little bit of a feeling of okay, here's the start, here's the end. I can be in charge of this, and therefore I can also do it.
And that everybody gets blood draws, not just a me thing.
Exactly.
And you did say a really good point there, where it's it's their control too, right? And that letting them, if you can let them play with the stuff ahead of time to kind of see it, obviously not sharps and stuff, but
Tylenol syringe works fine as a pretend, there's no needle
Lots
there.
Of doctor toys out there. You can buy a doctor kit.
Strings and some tape, and let's put them on. We're going to put them all over your head and all over your body, and letting them have that little bit of control, even in the situation of doing the sleep study. Get them to help you put the stickers on where you need the stickers, because as long as you involve them, the more you involve them in the situation and make it about them doing it,
exactly.
the easier your process is actually going to be. And I know it's not easy. Like sleep studies are probably one of the hardest things for our kids to do. And, you know, you're in a strange bed, you got these like 5,000 leads and stickers on top.
Exactly.
And, you know, how are they going to go to sleep? And
There's some irony in that one. Where you're like, good night.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But it's an important one. It has to be done.
Yeah. And like blood draws are hard, right? And you do have to hold them tight because obviously you don't want to get poked. You don't want them poked multiple times. You know, the technicians doing it don't want to get poked. And, you know, it's a hard process, but they do start to get used to the process. And same thing at the dentist, it's that exposure of things, right? They do start to figure it out and understand as long as it's not pushed upon them and you're not like, I hate dentists because I hate having to hold him down for it. And so it's just like a good dentist will take the time to let them get used to it and not be like, well, I'm on a schedule. We don't have time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is where calling ahead and being like, we need extra time for this appointment. Letting people know that that's what you anticipate is you can do that. I want to talk about parents for a hot second because parents are often as stressed as the child, if not more so. They might not be externalizing it and
keeping it on,
but they're really stressed, and no parent likes to see their child in distress. And if you, the parent, are finding that you have an intolerable level of stress leading up to some of these technical things or appointments, then it's okay to seek support for yourself and talk to somebody about that. We can recommend finding medical psychology if you're in an inpatient unit and talking to them. That's part of their job. Is chatting with you and recognizing too that it's normal. It's a stressful thing to have to do. If you're in PICU, that's very stressful. And finding support for that is not a bad thing to do.
No, and there's also social work, there's spiritual care. So regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are, there's spiritual care that is there and available to you. If you want your own spiritual support people to come in there, that is totally allowed as well. There's med psych that we can also get referrals for and for like anybody in your family and stuff like that too. So regardless of what the reason is that you're in the hospital or, you know, that is all available to everybody. And it's and it's an important thing to seek out. So, and sometimes we just don't know if that's what we need. But, you know, just to sit and talk about things sometimes is helpful.
Exactly.
I think so. Let's say people are listening to this and they're thinking, wow, I really would like to learn more about how to do this kind of communication, acknowledging that it's going to be ongoing. These large medical teams continue through childhood and up through adulthood. The members might change a little bit, but the teams remain quite large. Are there any resources that you could recommend for families to learn more about how the medical system works, how to talk to doctors, how to make sure that things go well, or maybe even some sort of dictionary things, because sometimes there's a lot of jargon involved and you're not sure exactly what's being talked about, and just some references that are reliable?
There's no actual like book or anything like that. Again, it would be just really talking to your medical team, talk to your nurses, talk to your therapists, because I think that they're probably your best bet on where to kind of get some of that information sometimes. I wish there was a book out there that said, you know, these are the resources that you can have access to. Because we also know that like depending on what community you work in or that you live in, I should say, the resources are easier accessible or less accessible.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and just, you know, sometimes you have to travel an hour and a half to be able to go get to your resources and therapists and stuff like that. So I think it's just really just talking to your community of support. And, you know, just if something just doesn't seem right, just ask like whether it be your pediatrician, your GP, you know, your OT, speech therapist, you know, like if you have a question, sometimes they can help just direct you. Unfortunately, there's just no full set book of like this is where to go and get stuff and get your supports and stuff like that.
Because it's different for each community, like you said, or each health authority or each specialty. But I think some of the key players in the game are good to know, like you said. So the pediatrician, GP, or nurse, social worker, psychology.
Yeah.
I think at least if families are aware of some of those players that are key in a hospital, that would be helpful. That's a great first step to at least know, right?
And when we have a family that comes into ICU and the child has Down syndrome, I come in as best as I can. If I'm on, come and say hi. And I come in as a fellow parent, not as a medical professional. And even if I am their nurse, I'm like, here, like I'm putting my other hat on right now. I'm going to let you know I have a child with Down syndrome. You know, obviously my journey is a bit of a different story. Everybody's story is different, but I'm here just to offer you the support of a parent and to let you know that there's a community of people out there and resources and supports that will help guide you. And you build your army. Right. You build your team and you have those supports. Even if it's like somebody, I'm like, hey, like, you know, if you need to reach out to me. Here's my name. Here's my number. I'm here as a support person, you know, and it may not be like a year later, they might come back and say, hey, you know what, we met at the hospital. I have some questions.
If people are curious and want to know more about what different medical professionals do, there is a section on our website that we'll put in the show notes that talks about what is a pediatrician, what's their role, what's an OT, what's their role, and we kind of cover some of the most common team members that way. We'll put a link to that because depending on where you are, you might not ever get a chance to talk directly with some of these people, so that's kind of helpful. Okay. Great. Thanks so much for coming and joining us today. We really appreciated having you on. I think this is crucial information for families.
Well, thank you for having me here. And everybody here has been amazing as well as a support team for me as well and our family and stuff too. So
awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.